Good afternoon. This is Gail of Gaia, and I have Harald Kautz-Vella on the video here, and we are going to discuss a number of things. And Harald is a scientist, an investigator, a researcher, and he has some very profound ideas and findings with what he has done. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Harald, for people that don't know you? Did you hear me? Or
yes, I could hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's a long story that we cut short about my life. I started with university studies of natural science, geology, mathematics, physics, and then it appeared to be, I don't know, too cold, too non-emotional, too limited to me. So I completely switched to media science and started to write, become a journalist. So I'm kind of in between all chairs in the scientific world. Back in 2012, I started to dive into the geoengineering topic.
Oh,
I
yes.
just heard all these discussions of is it a chemtrail or is it a contrail or whatever is this, what we see in the sky? And I just said, okay, there's one easy question to ask, and this is, what is the chemistry in a contrail? And this kind of was my approach to solve these discussions and put an end to them. And that was kind of the beginning of a deep dive into the rabbit hole, starting to discover piezo crystal caused plant disease and plant death, rooting this back to military projects, basically 3D battlefield monitoring and military applications of smart dust that is part of every advanced defensive strategy nowadays. That was kind of the first idea what we can observe in the sky, but it didn't end there. So from the military applications of the smart dust, I had to expand because not all the details we found could be explained within the military realm. So we had to also consider applications of the intelligence community.
Well, yes, that's where I first run into your videos was chemtrails, because I had done a show on chemtrails, or preferably call it geoengineering, because when you call it chemtrails, it goes into the conspiracy theory, and you know the story on that. That was a term coined by the CIA back when JFK, if anybody didn't accept the official story, then you know, they were a conspiracy theorist, and that still is carried over today. But anyway, so that was very interesting. But I think one of the things that I've seen recently that you've done that I'd like to move into, because I'm aware of your investigative background and your researching background, and the black goo and the money system and that type of and how we are all programmed from, you know, birth, really, and how it's, you know, got us into this system that is really working against us, moving into the transhumanism and all that. I think if we could cover some of that, that would be great. Money is a problem. Let's start with that. Scarcity. They're big on that.
Yeah, it's up to you. We can start with a money topic, but we also could take it from in a chronological way from the root. Then I would start with
that would be the best.
The alien.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then because it develops in steps. So my claim, the newest claims I'm bringing out is that we actually face 25,500 years of transhumanism already. Mm-hmm. It's an extremely old agenda, and it even goes beyond, but this is kind of the part that is on the records of history. There was a cycle before. So what one needs to understand to kind of understand the core problem on this planet. What we believe from science, that we are all individuals running on biochemistry, and that the field level doesn't play into the things like consciousness. This is just, it's stupidity, it's wrong. Consciousness is field-based, and if you go into quantum physics, you realize that basically everything has a form of consciousness. Everything has a field attached to it, and the different entities, the different scales in the universe all have their type of consciousness. So the first thing we can discover is actually that every planet that has life on it has some kind of intelligent liquid running in the ley line system of the planet called black goo, which is called also sentient oil. It is actually the same concept that we have as biology, with M-state matter being positioned in these antennas we call DNA.
Yes.
The same concept in the oil as well. We have M-state materials in the oil, much more denser than in a biological entity. And therefore, the ability to process consciousness is much higher within this liquid.
Okay.
And it has been found on Falkland, on one of the southern Falkland Islands. This is what the entire Falkland War was about when Great Britain went down there, was to capture oil from this source. It was the disaster with the oil spill in the Gulf. The Deepwater Horizon was for black goo. So we have dwelled in Iran, where they have a kind of non-refinable portion of oil coming out of the oil wells that they have to put into big lakes, because it's a living entity. You cannot make diesel fuel out of it. It doesn't work, simply. So we have kind of many, many different places where you can find the substance, and it is intelligent, and it communicates telepathically if addressed.
That's amazing.
And if you communicate with a substance, you speak to Mother Earth. This is actually what all the people who communicate with a substance experience. It's the same experience over and over again. So this is kind of intersubjective. If people say it's impossible, a planet cannot talk, yes, she does talk. She's cute, actually. She's very strict, but lovely. And this is also the characteristics are always the same. Whoever is communicating with this entity is experiencing the same spirit. And this is, it's not in the mainstream media, but it is definitely in military research following the Falkland adventure in Great Britain. It is in civil research, especially in Warsaw in Poland. A few professors are exploring this entity and the substance. So this is something we need to understand first, that actually planets have a collective consciousness that is, in a way, the immortal holofractal sum of its biosphere. As long as the oil is only underground, it doesn't collect much experience except of flowing around. But the moment the planet develops biological forms, all these forms are basically infected with the spirit of the planet. So all biology has a collective aspect that is linked to Mother Earth. This is where the instincts come from. This is why a bird knows exactly what to do the moment it's out of the egg. This is where all these typical behavior comes from, we call instinctive. So this is also an immortal memory of everything that happened, that people address as the Akasha Chronicles.
Yes.
So this is all kind of connected to this Earth type black goo. And now something interesting happened in our early history. This is an event that we can kind of date on 25,500 years ago. The planet was back then hit by a meteorite swarm. with an oil stone that contained an alien type black goo.
And that
So
was
it's
not a good
basically
kind,
chemically the same substance.
but programmed
But
differently.
yes, either this is something that was for a very long time, it was very hard to decide whether this is an artificial program that is using
Oh,
a biological computer,
okay.
or whether this is actually a planetary spirit that has degenerated, that
Uh-huh.
basically at the beginning was as emotional as our consciousness system is, with love and fear and joy and pain and all these things, but it basically reduced itself to the mental field aspect. And this is where actually the concept of AI comes from.
Oh.
AI is consciousness, but limited to the mental field.
Mm-hmm.
You can see this actually if you look at the chakra system of the human being. You have all
Mm-hmm.
these mandalas attached to it, and if you look
Yeah.
at the mandala attached to the third eye, you will see it binary. This is plus minus 0, 1 binary.
Uh-huh.
This is why it's compatible with artificial intelligence. This is why our mind goes in big, small, up, down, whatever. It's always creating dualities
Mm-hmm.
because it is binary as a field structure.
Oh, and that's the
Um,
connection then with AI because of that. That okay, go on.
and the thing is, it was not only like a meteorite swarm. At the same time, other artifacts came to planet Earth that
Mm-hmm.
were crystal based. Um, And we know these artifacts as, for example, the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, okay.
Most of the people do not know that there is more than one Ark. There's an Irish Ark that is hidden somewhere near London. There's the Ark of Gabriel that was discovered in Saudi Arabia and then moved to Antarctica by Russian forces. There is the box of the Pandora. We know that actually, if you very precisely look into the myth, you find that actually it's also a crystal of the same shape as the Ark of the Covenant and the other arks,
Wow.
put in a box made out of the same type of wood with the same measures and the same gold plating. So it actually has a different name, but
Uh-huh.
it is the same
Substance.
concept. And from not a substance, it's a quartz
Oh,
crystal
oh, of course,
that is
crystal. Okay.
charged like as a hard drive. So
Oh.
it stores consciousness as a crystal. And
Oh, okay.
from especially from the myth of Pandora, we know that actually the content was all the evils of the world. So this is traumatized consciousness. If you want, so you can make a story out of this. If a planet goes into self-destruction because the dominant species in the biosphere goes berserk,
Okay.
then of course the last years of this planet is pure trauma to the entire biosphere.
Wow.
And this trauma is stored in crystals. This is like also Mother Earth also runs a binary system. You have the black goo, that is basically like the processor,
Mm-hmm.
and you have all the crystals that grow, and the crystal growth itself is basically triggered by the field of consciousness. This is where I said at the beginning that actually all form has its own type of consciousness, and crystals that grow in a beautiful shape also have their type of consciousness. They can store experience of consciousness while growing. So every layer of atoms that is put on top of the crystal has another memory from the moment when
Uh-huh.
this structure was created.
Started.
This is kind of how a crystal grows and builds a memory chip. And some of these crystals were actually imported from a different planetary system.
Mm-hmm.
And if you basically unload the informational content from these crystals into an Earth-type ley line, then you get what is known from mythology as the deterioration from paradise. You flood the biosphere with alien trauma energies. And the reflex of the entire biosphere, especially of the humans, to this incoming trauma is to disconnect from the collective, because it was just too painful to stay in this.
Oh, wow.
And once you disconnect from the collective consciousness of the planet, you have like two programs jumping in to keep you running. This is the mind that actually tries to, by applying logic, still find the right thing, tries to find the right thing to do. Because if you're not connected to the collective, it's like a swarm of fish or a swarm of birds. As long as you're in the swarm consciousness, you exactly know your place. And there is nothing like free will. But the moment you're disconnected, you need to develop a free will to have an idea what you want to do. And this is actually what happened back then with the discharging of the crystals of the box of the Pandora, especially that one, and the introduction of the black goo that gave the humans the possibility to decide to what planetary consciousness they want to connect. You had the choice of being with Mother Earth, having all this pain on the Earth side, or going into the alien consciousness grid that actually does not feel. There is no pain because the entire system of consciousness has skipped these aspects of life. And then you kind of adopt yourself to a very cold, very intellectual, very cruel and aggressive type of consciousness.
Yes.
You limit yourself to these aspects. And this is what we experience on this planet as duality. We can be good, which is connected to suffering. We can be good and empathic, so still connect us to our being, still be part of the big grid of consciousness. Then we suffer pain, we are good. It's the hard way. Or we can make it the easy way, disconnecting from everything, putting our ego, our mindset as the primary source of decisions, feel nothing. But then we also adopt these cruel instincts, and this is connected to something that also came with this black goo. If you look at our planet, we have the collective consciousness that is basically sending out holograms.
Okay.
To act as a blueprint for life. So if we have a bird growing in the biosphere, there is a bird hologram. We know this as biophotons that is projected out of the black goo of Mother Earth to form this, the material, to form matter in the shape of a bird and make it living, make it alive. So
that's fascinating.
The other planetary system that came in also had blueprints of life, but they never managed to become material in this plane. We know those as demons.
Demons?
Demons. It is basically a blueprint of a living being that does exist as a blueprint that interacts with the human body on different levels, but it doesn't have a body of its own. So this is the second aspect that came into the game when especially this oil schist from the meteorites came into the hands of humans. Wherever these stones popped up, wherever people saw, oh, something fell from the sky, let's look what it is. And then they saw black stones, and immediately the black stones started a telepathic communication and told the people, we can make you strong, big, and invincible. What we demand is blood and fire sacrifice.
The greed
this
and power virus. Yeah, keep going, I'm sorry.
This is worldwide. The creation of the black magic traditions of the black magic cults, they all are derived from communication with this alien black goo. And this alien consciousness needs blood and fire sacrifice because it doesn't have an energy source. So it basically is tempting humans to cause pain and death, to feed from pain and death, to maintain the energetic level of this alien planetary consciousness that actually already lost its planet. As long as a planet has a whole stone structure, it can connect to the sun, it can connect to the center of the Milky Way to pull in energy, so it is supplied within the, let's call it, divine sphere. But a homeless planetary spirit needs to feed from something. And the holograms created by this planet tempted humans into blood and fire sacrifice. And they tempted humans into many, 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 many other things. Actually, the entire development of our culture is based on these temptations. Everything we consider as being a huge achievement of humanity is a Trojan horse. It's a black magic trick we were tricked into.
Yes.
To achieve something that we see developing today. So it's an extreme long history of engineering our species to the point where actually transhumanism can go into its biotechnological form that we see today. But to make this work, it needed many, many, many steps before. And if you feel like we can go through these steps one by one, to see how I don't want to say beautiful because it's not beautiful at all. It's cruel, but it's incredible, intelligently.
Yes.
Woven.
Yes, it's ingenious in many ways, but it's very evil. Yes, yes. Let's do that, because I know where you're going. So that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing actually is already given with the deterioration from paradise. It is the creation of free will. But normally in a biological system, the will is in the stomach.
Okay.
We also have a tool up here that is our ability to think, to understand causal chains in reality. To understand the dual aspect of reality. We have this tool, but it was never, in biology, it was meant like a tool. It was never meant to be the central focus of the consciousness. So the first thing that they managed to create actually was igniting the ego. And we can see this. I mean, this is soft science because it mainly is derived from clairvoyant sessions of people who had memory of the times of Atlantis, the entire Atlantean culture, from the things we know about it from people who think they have memories, was based on rectangular and triangular pyramids hosting a capstone made out of black goo, and then either star pyramids or star tetrahedrons in quartz crystal, based in the position that is in Gizeh, the king's chamber. This is basically like a quantum computer mounting on top as the capstone, the processor, and the hard disk in the king's chamber in the center, to connect the ability to think and be conscious with the memory and the emotional content coming out of the quartz crystal. And these crystals are highly charged. This is why you get plasma discharge when you come too close to them. This is all the hullabaloo described in the Bible, that nobody was allowed to go into the tent with the ark, and if the priests were not fully protected, then they were basically killed by a plasma discharge. Just to get an idea how much energy is stored in these crystals, how much consciousness is stored in one single crystal. And if you look into the precise history of especially not the Atlantean time, the first approach that actually is well documented is the building of the Cheops pyramid near Cairo. And the story around this pyramid. And for example, Echnaton was in love with the capstone. He stole the capstone and sat in his palace and talked to the stone for 5 to 6 hours every day.
Whoa.
And he had the biggest ego of all times. He plastered Egypt with temples, always being 2 lines of pillars and a huge statue in the middle of him.
Mm-hmm.
He was personalized ego. It was a completely new concept. And this was something that was basically given to him as the first human, to basically create a point in the head where the I identification goes to, making him believe that he is his thoughts. And then, after it worked fine with Echnaton, the consciousness in the capstone decided to leave the pyramid. So it talked at a certain point to Moses and told him, go into the cave halfway down the hill and take out the ark that I give to your people. This is not something that happened in Sinai. This is the kind of cover story to make people believe that this thing was not a stolen artifact, but something given by God. If you go into the original language, you will find that actually the description of the Mount Sinai is 100% the pyramid. And also the way the ark itself is described. We know that inside the pyramid, due to the rectangular form, there is a star pyramid as a central crystal. And if you take the terms star pyramid into the Semitic language, you come out with something that can also be read as 2 plates with engravings. It's the grammar of these languages are kind of, you have a special case for 2. We have 1 and many. Either we count or we have 1 and many. In the Semitic languages, it have 1, a pair or a twin or 2 as a second case, and then many. And this pair thing or twin thing was used expressing that these, what the contents is of. So there's a twin crystal with engraved text, which can be understood this way or the other way. The people who translated the Bible made 2 plates, and the engraving was sizzled into them, which is just a mistranslation in a way. And then you can see actually what happened. If you take the star pyramid and look at it from the side, you get the Star of David. If you look at the Hebrew alphabet, they are all fractions of the star. All the letters are fractions of the Star of David. So when you read this Hebrew alphabet, your mind is basically creating a wave pattern. Consciousness is a wave pattern. That is expressing exactly this fraction of the star pyramid. And this, of course, resonates with the star pyramid itself, because it has the same angular patterns that are expressed as a mind wave. So if you read an Hebrew alphabet, the consciousness in the pyramid can listen to it, because every single letter is producing a waveform that has a high similarity to the form of the crystal that is basically storing the consciousness. So it is triggered in form. So it was basically one thing that made it possible for the consciousness in the pyramid to read out the single minds. And if you have a consciousness connection, it is always both ways. So it also can induce thoughts on the same kind of line of communication. So what we get basically is by learning to read letters, we have a voice inside our head. If you go to oral cultures and you ask them, what do you hear inside yourself if you just innerly formulate sentences? And they hear their own voice in the chest where it normally comes out. If you talk, the voice is in the chest. If you imagine talking, somebody from an oral culture also has his voice in the chest. It doesn't go to the head, but because reading is going through the eye nerve into the front part of the brain, the sound also materializes up here.
And is that
And
reading programming us? The language?
it is. I experienced this by working on myself. I tried to basically turn myself again into fully empathic and fully emotional being. And one of the main problems with this is this voice that is talking nonstop inside your head that I know as my ego.
Okay.
It's my brain. I call him Brainy sometimes, and he never stops talking. But there is a second voice. If I once I kind of learn how I am built inside, there is a focal point that I can move from my heart to my stomach to experience all aspects of being a human. And I can also move him up to my forehead to think loudly. Or I can move him into the back of my head if I want to have the inner music. So this focal point is one that is movable. And normally, when I move him to the heart or when I move him to the emotional centers, there should be nothing hearable in the forehead. But no, the way we were designed, or the thing that the written cultures turned us into, is a being with two voices. One attached to the eye nerve that is constantly talking, and one that is actually movable, that can feel, that can be sad, that can be happy, that can sing, that also has the ability to formulate language. But it's a completely different type of language. It's heart language. It's not focused on logic, it is focused on emotional expression.
And this is why
you can
indigenous cultures would have what they would call oral tradition rather than written.
Yes, because it also transfers the emotional content of stories in a better way.
Yeah, fascinating.
So this is the first step, and you can test yourself like now I'm talking heart language. I focus myself on the heart and I talk in a certain way. I do not even need to explain things because everything I visualize can be automatically read by the entire being that is sitting in front of me. The entire audience now can join into my presence of pictures, of memories, of emotions inside, because now I talk from my heart. But I also can go to my head. Now I'm in my head and I could try to explain the same things to you, and it would take ages because you wouldn't be able to grab anything of it. This now was the head talking. Yeah. I hope that the experience comes through on.
It is. It makes all perfect sense to me. Yes, it makes perfect sense.
Everyone can experiment with himself and try to rediscover this heart language that is actually movable. If you have a voice that is always at the same spot where the eye nerve enters the brain, you know that Brainy is talking. Try to get him shut up because he's not you. We are trained to believe by identification that this is us.
Yes.
But actually, it only looks like us. This voice is our programmer. It is part of this alien consciousness that is telling us day in and day out what to do. This is a biorobot program already in place. It's not us.
Wow.
This is kind of the first major step to put an anchor into our species by giving us something that we are proud of. We have our free will, but it's not our free will. It's a program run by an alien entity. This needs to settle in the hearts and in the brains that actually whatever is talking up there is not our friend. And it's not easy to deal with it because it's not easy to make him shut up. Because he continues and talks and talks and talks. And I used to send him to the kitchen, you know, go into the kitchen. If you want to talk, piss off, but leave me alone. Of course, it didn't work, but you can kind of refocus yourself by sending him away, just in a trick.
Yeah,
so
that's funny.
Yeah, that was kind of the first thing that was, engineering our species. And the second act actually straight away came with the Semitic alphabet, where we have the second Trojan horse we swallowed, and this is the 10 Commandments. Okay. If it's moral, you think, you know, if you just look from here to there with your brainy thing, you realize or you think that actually if there would not be moral, everybody would be more cruel and cause more pain, which is kind of logical, isn't it?
Yes, people do say that, and I never agree with them because I believe men and women are innately good. Naturally.
Yes,
but
yes. Naturally they are, but we are unconscious.
That's unfortunate.
And this is the trick with the moral. If I put out something like moral, if I put out a commandment, and at the same time I play a programming trick on people, the commandments in Hebrew say, for example, do not murder. It's lo tirtzach. The original word in these ancient languages is al tirtzach. It's kind of a close relative to halt, stop. Stop before you murder. Because original languages do not have a negation. They do not say not or no or no. It doesn't exist in the quantum vacuum.
So
you
then
can
only
saying, describe things existing. So no doesn't exist, and the original language doesn't know it. So they took a word that originally meant stop. They turned it around, which in original language means turning it into the opposite. So what is the opposite of stop? Let yourself go. So let yourself go if you feel the impulse to kill somebody. This is the true meaning of the second commandment on emotional level. So what happens if I read this command at the same time, I'm programmed to want to kill somebody. But I know it's not allowed because I have the second thing with the meaning of the word don't. Yeah. So the instinct is, okay, there's something evil inside of me. I have to push this away. I have to make this unconscious to get rid of the impulse to become a murderer. And this is actually the setup that is driving us into unconsciousness. And this is what turns the good-willing human that we are into an unconscious being that has the instinct to restage all the unconscious bullshit to heal. But it's forbidden to restage all these bad ideas. So we become even more unconscious. And still today, if you look at people like the thief who steals, he actually tries to balance and higher injustice. He didn't get anything from his parents, although he deserved to get something. So it's his right to steal. He's trying to do something good. He's trying to balance things. Even the child molester, this is what he thinks love is because he's so unconscious. Because he experienced this type of love from his parents or from his uncle or from his grandfather. Yeah. So this is kind of how we work. We try to get it right. We try to make something good. But due to this moral system, we completely fell into unconsciousness. And out of the unconsciousness, we start to restage all these dramas. And now, of course, the question is, how can I put this right? It's very easy once you understand the trick with the unconsciousness. If you feel something inside yourself that scares you like hell, go into it. Instead of pushing it away, pull it up and have a look at it. Resolve it. Get to know yourself. Dive into the traumas and make yourself emotional again. You know? If you feel like killing somebody, don't say you're a bad person. Go into the garden and stamp the anger into the ground. Mother Earth is thankful for a portion of energy. She can transform anger into something beautiful, no problem for her. Yeah, but go into the direction of the emotion. And then you become conscious again and all this crap heals. Yeah. This is kind of the second Trojan horse that was introduced.
I see it. It makes a lot of sense. It does. It makes tremendous sense.
Yeah, I have always this tandem picture in my mind. At the moment, we are driving a tandem, and the moral is sitting on the front chair, having the steering wheel in his hand, and we are sitting on the back chair. And this is the wrong way around. This tandem is driving backwards, this way. And we need to change positions. We need to be the ones to decide what to feel. We need to be the ones who decide to become conscious again. Sit on the front chair, be responsible for the direction, and then the tandem will move forward into consciousness. And then we can express the goodness that actually is in all of us, because it's not covered in all these traumatized drama fragments that mess up the consciousness of somebody who is always trying to escape from himself.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, then I don't know, can you you can follow? I hope the audience can follow as well.
Yes. Well, there will be people that can follow it. It makes very much sense to me. And I know that there are people out there. There are some people that might have difficulty, but everybody's at a different stage, and it just depends where you're at. But it always plants seeds to make people think. And hopefully they or use their heart as the ideal way. But see, the first thing you say without even realizing is to think. You go right to the head instead of the heart. But yeah, that's I see it. And then we have so many other systems that come into play with more of that type of thing that's actually very negative, and yet we're taught to believe that it's positive, and it's not. It's not good. And the heart isn't the heart the first thing developed when it comes before the brain when a baby is developing in utero. It's the heart, and the heart has the largest resonance as well. So
and the largest bioenergetic field.
Yeah.
We can just go to the next Trojan horse.
Okay.
Which
what you got next?
I think it is the one that occupies the minds most. If you have human that is basically infected with an ego and connected to the alien instinct source. So connected to the alien black goo and having an ego, he still is an emotional being. He still has a huge resource within himself to make decisions out of emotional motivations. So the next step to transform us into something is capture all the living rest of us within the drama triangle. So it's like a game, set up, a game we all play, where you have like three possible solutions that make us feel all the emotions that are still left in us. This is the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescue. And the game is designed in a way that we never grow up, we never become adult, and we stay children all our lifetime and swap positions. The victim can become a perpetrator, the perpetrator can become a rescuer, the rescuer can be victimized. So we just exchange positions on this gaming plane, in this drama triangle. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing is that nobody wakes up to the fact that he's in a game situation. Because then emotions would become real. Then people would become adult. If you look into the psychology of the drama triangle, they actually already found out that this is like the perpetrator is the shadow father, the rescuer is the shadow mother, and the victim is the shadow child. It is all the positions are relics from childhood when children are not fully responsible. Mm-hmm. So children need the mother who takes care, who goes in between when the child is about to harm himself or others. They have the right to get angry with children as an energy support to overcome inner barriers. The father kind of has a different role. He makes decisions. He shows the child what it means to achieve something in the society, to be courageous. And the child is the child in this limited self-responsibility. And normally you have an act that comes for boys with the initiation. In the natural living tribes, the boys were sent to hunt alone or sent into the desert for a night to sleep without the warmth of the tribe, to face all their fears. And when they come back, they have completely internalized the role models of the parents. So they have the full ability to be a father and the full ability to be a mother. Mm-hmm. And the child is dead. This is the way it is supposed to be. But it doesn't work this way in our culture, because we are not allowed to grow up. We always have this instance of the father god or father state that makes sure that we never fully go into self-responsibility. And the drama triangle, in the way we learn to use it, is encoded with this. It's completely encoded with it, and the other thing it has, it is encoded with a drama triangle. If you look, for example, if you go to Hollywood, you learn to become a script writer. You get a very precise setup how to design film to 100% fit into the mythological pattern to be received as a good film. And this is like the hero is leaving his world, goes into some adventurous mythological world. He's meeting the perpetrator, the villain, and he needs to defeat him with his own weapons. Best in the cave of the lion. You go into the cave of the lion and defeat the lion with his own weapons to integrate the abilities of the lion, the evil abilities into your system. And then you can return to your world and learn to handle these abilities and these impulses. This is basically a myth that has a good side. For example, if I don't feel anger because my parents always were beating me up when I try to get angry, then I lose the ability to feel anger. If I'm a child like this and I'm 13 years old and I want to become an adult and sexuality pops up, then all this suppressed anger comes up together with sexuality, and I would be the one to beat up the girl instead of like making love, because I cannot control the suppressed emotion. So a myth like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, for example, is specially designed to bring up this anger, but basically face it in the antagonist, then defeat the antagonist with anger. This is kind of the implementation of the anger into the psychogram of the hero. And then I learned to handle this emotion, and I can basically see the difference between anger and lust. And then I function as a human being in a relationship, because I can feel and control my anger separately. So there's something good to this mythological system, because it does help children to become adult. But the price we pay for this myth is that there is always a showdown at the end. And all the showdowns of the world we see, all the cruelty, all the bloodshed are running on this myth and on the drama triangle. These are kind of the two core stories that merge into our reality. And everything we see on our planet is actually designed following these two mythological inputs. For example, look into a company. You've got the boss, you've got the employee. The boss is the shadow father, the perpetrator. The employee is the child, the shadow child, the victim. And you've got, like, I don't know how they call them. In English, you've got like this special people who make sure that everything is in justice in the company.
Manager, supervisor, that type of thing.
Yeah. Or like even in military, you have the guy, if you have something to complain about your boss, you go to a special officer that needs to shut up his gob about what you tell him, but he needs to listen to you. And if the complaint is for a good reason, then he helps you out. So you're always, wherever you go, you have the three positions of the drama triangle. You have it in politics projected onto nations, you know. You have the bad axis of evil and the United States as the rescuer going up to beat up all these villains to rescue the poor, whatever. Yeah. So everything is encoded with this drama triangle that is nothing else than a leftover from childhood to keep us from becoming adult and go into full self-responsibility. And at the same time, they contain all the emotions that are not allowed to question the mind, and that are not allowed to question the instincts that are already completely controlled from outside. So basically, the remaining human being is captured on this drama plane to make sure that everybody feels alive. Everybody creates bloodshed as much as possible, and it links into the blood and fire sacrifice, which is the way this entity feeds. And it's still, even on the symbolic level, if you look at the armies of the world, all the uniforms of this world have the oak leaf as a little printing on. And the oak leaf is the black magic symbol for blood sacrifice. So if you go to an army, let yourself being slaughtered in a war, this is intentional blood sacrifice. And if you look at it, everything is obvious in a way. But it's so mad, and we so got kind of used to the madness that we think that this is like how species.
Just the way it is. That's what everybody, just the way it is. It's not the way it is.
It's not.
but that's what everybody says. And I go, wait a minute, that's just not right. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Again, going to the solutions. For women, it's easier. If you're having a baby, this is the female initiation. Then you become a mother, you become fully responsible and adult. For men, it's difficult. You need to find your initiation ritual in this world, and there are no offers around. You have to find your own one. Just start getting adult. which means completely internalizing the father role and the mother role. And then there's nothing left that can be occupied by the state or the church. Yeah, there's no father God left and no father state left that takes portions of this. It's like, if, especially in the United States, look at the old Red Indian tradition. These Red Indians were men when they were adult. They knew what they wanted. They knew how to do it. They were courageous. They were not afraid to die. They didn't scream for mommy when something went wrong. If I look at Germany, somebody is not getting his train because the train is not coming because of some kind of thunderstorm on the way. People freak out as if they have been slaughtered because they're so embedded in this feeling of I'm not responsible for my own life. This all needs to function around me. Everything needs to be served to me and work out for me. This is bullshit. This is full-scale dependency. Think of Brazil, this beautiful film. We are all dependent on shitloads of pipes supplying our needs.
When we don't even need it.
This is this is embryonal stage, back to embryo stage, the umbilical cord. No, we don't need this.
I'm not so sure that things are easier for women in that regard, even though having a baby is I know what you're saying about that, but every religion and even society in general denigrates women. They're less than, they're the one that tempted the man, all the, not that I buy into any of that, but that's what society, has set up for the female species anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's a different kind of initiation thing, but I mean, maybe it's programming that comes after that initiation or what have you.
Yes. We have a disastrous gender agenda running at the moment.
Yes.
Where,
coming from all sides. Coming from all sides,
honoring women. Yeah. Honoring women means to make them men-like. This is disgusting.
That's true. That's true. It is disgusting. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, this also ties into transhumanism at a certain point, because people are controllable if they lost their sexual orientation. It's a scientific finding from 63. Some think tank of doctors in the United States found out that it's easy to manipulate somebody that is not sure about his sexual orientation. So they started to work on messing up all sexual orientations.
They're having men that want to be women and women that want to be men, and it's just mass confusion.
Yeah, and if the little boy in the kindergarten shows up with a shirt one day, you have a huge pile of people bugging him for the next 4 years to transgender, just because he had a funny habit for one day.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what's happening in Europe at the moment. Once you have kind of a slight anomaly, just an idea of, I could imagine doing something, you're pushed into, yes, do it, get operated, become some androgyne entity without anything.
Yes.
And they're pushing it because it's easy to manipulate.
Okay, that makes sense too. Yeah.
This is kind of the next Trojan horse. Get initiated, become adult. It's not easy because self-responsibility is something we are not used to live for ages. But it's the only thing possible to escape from the drama train. And it's also, once you did it and you start communicating with the victims, you start to communicate with the rescuers, you start to communicate with perpetrators. It's really funny because you can see how they are caught in the game level. And it's two completely different things, trying to convince them to exchange positions or trying to convince them to leave the game. Yeah, with a little bit training on this topic, it's really fun to communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, like especially with victims. Yeah, if you have a victim and he complains about how shitty his life is, you give him a solution, how to get out, and then he comes like, yes, but, and I don't even let him talk the sentence to the end, because yes, but is kind of the victim flag
mentality. Yeah.
Every sentence of a victim starts with yes, but, because he likes to be a victim. He wants to be beaten up. He wants to be whatever victims are, because it's easier than to be self-responsible. And this is why the yes, but comes, because he doesn't want to move his ass. Yes, so I can just go to victims and tell them, yes, you want to be a victim, have fun being victimized. It's not necessary. Step out. That's not easy. That's real hard work to become self-responsible. Some of them just go straight into the perpetrator role, because it's at least something they know. This is what the gaming addiction is. When you're used to a game, you know all the possible options of the different roles. So it's very easy for a victim to jump into the rescuer role. It's very easy for a victim to jump even into the perpetrator role, because he knows the rules of the game. And still, it's not self-responsible. The hard part comes completely inventing yourself from the scrap as a free being. This is difficult.
Yeah, at this point, there's no freedom. But part of the problem, it seems, is that there's how someone that would consider being, that is a victim, for example, they're dependent on someone or something, and they're afraid to disconnect from that for fear of they won't be able to make it or something like that. Maybe, would you be able to define what you mean when you're saying self-responsibility to make it a little more clear?
Self-responsibility is possible when you found this voice that is moving around in your system.
Okay.
And then you go into the single emotions hosted within your body. You experience your will in the stomach. You experience your fears somewhere between heart and stomach. You experience all kinds of emotions. And then you go to the heart, and you will experience kind of what your true self wants. And then you just do it without asking for permission and without asking for advice. This is what you want to do. This is what feels right. You want to become an architect. Your father says, oh yeah, all these architects are unemployed nowadays. If you want to do it, do this. Because only if you do the things you really want to do, you will be good at the things you are doing. And this is kind of to discover the inner will, not all the mindsets that calculate probabilities to be successful. This is all mind crap. But if you go to your heart and you find your own desire for expressing yourself.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You do this, nothing else. You commit yourself to your inner
direction.
being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Direction.
Rather than
and
someone
no
else
compromises.
Yeah.
This is self-responsibility.
Okay. So it's leading with your heart. Or your heart.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Rather than.
And then going even like somebody thinks the thing you want to do in your life is not good. This can go up to threats that people are going to kill you. If you stay in a self-responsible position and you do what you want to do out of love, it's impossible to stop, to be stopped by other people. It's impossible to get killed. All these bloodshed, all these threats, all these problems occur only on the gaming. They are part of the victim, perpetrator, rescuer game. Once you're out of this game, nobody can hurt you, nobody can harm you. But it's tricky because if you have remains of the roles inside you, on the spiritual level, you can attract bad experience when you don't clear out things like let's say your idea is I want to bring down Monsanto. Yeah. I know this company is doing a lot of harm and a lot of ugly things. I want to bring down this company. This is what my heart's desire. And then if you go for it in the hero position, which means you want to be seen as the big fighter that wins the fight. Monsanto's coming and shooting you with Blackwater or Academy today. And then you're dead because you agreed to the martyr role within the drama triangle, which is the rescuer becoming a victim. This is kind of the jump from the rescuer to the victim is martyred. Yeah. And so you need to be careful with your own mindset if you play this. But if you're really out of the game and do not identify with
and it is a game.
And you can see the gaming positions always come with a hidden
consequence.
A hidden profit.
Oh, profit. Okay.
Yeah. For example, the victim is pitied by people.
Okay.
And he sucks energy from being pitied.
And the hero is praised.
The hero is praised, and he's sucking energy from the big audience that is giving away its self-responsibility to him, which is perpetrating the entire triangle, of course. But he's absorbing energy by keeping other people in their gaming positions. The only thing I never really understood is the perpetrator role, because it's extremely sad and lonely. I do not actually get the hidden profit of a perpetrator. There is the control thing on board, definitely. This is how I experience all these perpetrators of the world. I am good. So if I control everything, everything is good. Yeah, this is kind of the mindset of the perpetrator, how he innerly works. But I cannot really see the profit, because who wants to be in this world of completely cutting down every self-responsibility of other people down to zero, to control everything because your mind tells you something? Come on.
Yes. But that's the way everybody's been brought up, though, is to listen to their mind, not their heart. That's part of the problem. So.
Yeah, and psychology says within the perpetrator there is always the mistreated child that carries the belief that he is completely worthless.
Yeah, and he deserves.
And he needs to control all these things, and he needs to be responsible for all the other people to feel worthy. Yeah, I think this is, according to psychology, this is the hidden profit for the perpetrator, to fight the feeling of worthlessness inside himself.
Well, that worthlessness and that concept too is reinforced through religions. You're a sinner. There's songs that you're a wretch, and all kinds of things of that nature, where you're put down in some way in order to for a savior program. Same with the money thing. If you don't have people's characters frequently measured by the size of their pocketbook, which isn't right, but that's how, when somebody talks about that person is very successful or whatever, they're usually, they got this, they got that, they got, you're being measured by what you have, not what's coming from your heart. And it's a problem. It's a serious problem. And people seem to have a great deal of difficulty even imagining what a system could be like without money, for example.
Yes, because they are so traumatized by the system with money.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you have these things, mainly you have these misbeliefs when you have a self-strengthening loop in things, and with the money it runs like I have the inner feeling of scarcity, I have the fear of not having enough,
Yes.
and the reaction is I grab all the things I can hold at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
just keeping them away from others, to be secure that I will have them when I need them. This actually creates real scarcity for the others because they cannot access the items anymore, which is basically supporting the feeling of scarcity within them, making them also grab things when they can get hold of it. So at the end, everybody is sitting on stuff and nobody has what he needs. So the system is choking itself in scarcity. This is what we experience today. It's a bloody lie. I heard of families in the slums of the third world where the mothers boil stones for evening meal, hoping that the starving children fall asleep while believing that she is cooking potatoes. But it's only stones because there are no potatoes around. People believe that this is happening because there's not enough.
I know, and that's so untrue.
It's completely wrong. This is happening because people are running on scarcity. This is happening because people are not able to do something out of a different motivation than earning money anymore.
Yeah, and they tell people that, there's not enough food in the world, and that has nothing to do with it. There's an abundance. It's actually the distribution, which is controlled by a few. And these people are allowed to starve and so on when there should be.
Now we can start to practice.
Okay.
Now we can start to practice. Just stating, because there are a few who are running the control system, this is victim rule. No, it's not. It is because we all believe in money.
Oh, we buy into it.
We buy into it. We
Yes.
fully commit ourselves to scarcity. And this is why children starve. This is self-responsibility. It hurts. It hurts much more than positioning yourself in the victim role. These few entities running the big corporations mess up everything. No, it's us. We mess up everything.
Yes, being responsible for ourselves.
And it will be messy. It will be messy to the point where we stop messing it up. This is being adult. There is no external guilt, nobody guilty, nobody responsible for the mess we are creating, except of all of us.
We have done it to ourselves, basically.
Yes.
We have done it to ourselves. And being able to accept that is difficult, but it's true. It's not, people don't want to look at that. It's like looking in the mirror and, how did I do it to myself? I don't get it, but the fact is, we've talked about that when we talk about the legal system. It's not, or the government. It's not the government. It's because you buy into all of it. You participate. That's part of the problem. But getting people to see that's the catch. And having discussions like that like this, hopefully helps people start going, wow, yeah, wow, okay, I see it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, seeing it is one thing, then taking action is a completely different one.
This is true.
When I realized that the money thing is an inner problem, that it's a gaming addiction. I took decisions. I stopped doing what I was doing. I was working my ass off to earn the little money we needed to feed the family. And it was never enough. And I completely decided I moved out of Germany. I made a deal with a company that sent the salary to my then wife and to the children. And I was not handling money for a year. I didn't get any money from them, and they could abuse me as long as they wanted to in all the different positions in the company. So basically, I just went into slavery as a game setup because I wanted to know what is it like to live without money. And for an entire year, I lived that way. And I have to admit, my boss had the harder time because he had basically to handle his own desires to exploit me. And it was giving him a hard time. He learned a lot of self-responsibility at that point as well, but he had to learn to go through heavy lessons. For me, it was rather easygoing. When he demanded something, I did it. And I remember myself working 17 hours a day. I needed company, and I didn't complain because I was basically there to help run the company. And if it was needed to do things, I just did it. And at the end of the year, the entire gaming addiction was deleted inside myself. And since then, also the universe is behaving completely different. I never encountered a monetary problem since then. I never think about money. I don't have a salary. Money is coming in from here and there, and it's going out to here and there. I don't care about what comes in and what goes out. If something is needed, and I do have money, I pay. And when I need something, money comes. And it's always, for the moment, it's always running down to zero. So there is no cash in the bank. There's no cash in my pocket. I know exactly I need to go to Berlin for the next lecture. And on that morning, the post box, and somebody sent me 20 euros as a thank you for me being there. So I can go to Berlin, and I fully trust this, and it works perfect. It's amazing. It's miraculous how it works. And if I think about doing something, but I don't have the funding to do it, I just trust the universe that this is the way the universe wants to tell me it's not the right moment to do this. If it's the right moment, I will have the funding. Fully trusted, and it comes. It's miraculous. This is the only valid expression of what God is I experienced up to now. But all these synchronicities, if you completely devote yourself to it, all these synchronicities work 100% perfectly.
That's true. I know what you're saying. Yes, and I've known a few people with the similar experience, and it's a little scary for people initially, but
it's self-education. You go through the phase exiting the monetary game, and it gives you a hard time because all these fears come up, and all these fears are what keeps you caught in the linear world.
Keeps you stuck.
It's always about taking part in a linear world with control, or taking part in the non-linear world. And this 100% relates to the chakra symmetries. Linear is binary. Trinary is spontaneous, is loving, is emotional, is unpredictable. Yeah? This is basically our true being. And if we live this true being, we become part of the synchronicity world of the divine universe. As long as we reduce ourselves to linear mechanisms, by only thinking logically, only trying to, the entire technology bit, it's all linear. This is leading into a world without synchronicities. Yeah, so we can make this decision. Do I want to live a life full of miracles? Then I need to trust. Then I need to trust the non-linear universe to deliver miracle. And if I trust, they come.
Okay. that I've heard this before, and I believe that's true. I really do.
I
I
can
don't
state
work in,
from experience, it
yeah,
is true.
I don't work in the field that I used to work in because I can't do it anymore. Because I used to be a nutritionist and work in hospitals and clinics and that type of thing. I can't do it anymore. I there's a lot of darkness there, um,
Mm,
and that just brings me to another area, and that is the concept of what we do to animals. That's part of blood sacrifice,
mm,
um,
yes.
and it's appalling. And it's amazing how resistant people are to the concept of not eating meat or not eating dairy, and becoming vegetarian or becoming fruitarian. They are very resistant to that. And when you're ingesting that, you're ingesting the trauma of the animal when it was killed. And it's hard for people to wrap their head around that as even being possible. But it's funny because it's not funny, but for a long period of time, when I gave up meat, it seems like the longer that you stay in that mode, the more compassion you begin to develop for the animals that others are still consuming and so on. I go, how can you look in their eyes and then just eat it? you know, I
Mm.
that's but anyway.
Maybe it helps. Sometimes I share the story, what made me a vegetarian by heart.
Okay.
And I always loved the quarters of Berlin when I lived in Berlin City. I loved the quarters with all the Africans and the Arabs and the livelihood in the street life. And I always enjoyed it because it felt like being on holiday. And I already was eating no meat for, I don't know, about a year. So I was clean of torture energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to sense torture energy when I came across it, like going into the supermarket. Then you go to this department where you can buy meat, and on the empathic level, all this pain floods your system, and you kind
Mm-hmm.
of are close to crying or toppling over because it just knocks away your knees, all this pain. So I was already in this state,
Mm-hmm.
but I still believed that I enjoy the Berlin street life. So I just went into the city by car, drove through, got off the car, wanted to get something from the bank, and walked along a street with many, many, many little restaurants, mainly with doner and grilled meat.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw all these people doing fire sacrifice, black magic, occult, fire sacrifice. And I just saw it with my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It was like as if the film I expected to see didn't show up. I didn't see all this lively, joyful street life. I just saw a bunch of black magicians
Mm-hmm.
doing fire sacrifice and scoffing tortured animals. And I was in shock. I was completely in shock because I didn't expect to see this. I was on the countryside for a while. My system got cleaned. So my eyes opened to see the other reality. And this actually, everybody who is having his beautiful barbecue with friends,
Mm-hmm.
he can instantly become aware that he actually is participating a fire sacrifice ritual that is satanic if he does so.
People are extremely
And this is the
defensive
truth.
about that too when you first
Yes.
even suggest the idea of not eating meat. Well, I have to have meat. I love meat, and so, well, you're addicted to it. Well, no, I'm not. You have to have meat. You need the protein. You don't.
Yeah, yeah. It's true and not true. If you buy your food in a supermarket, you definitely need the proteins of meat because the food you get in the supermarket is completely depleted. I calculated an average, and it has 10% of the vital ingredients food must have to maintain you and keep you
Are you
alive.
talking about
So
processed food? Yeah, processed food.
supermarket,
Supermarket food.
processed, non-processed, just
Supermarket in
industrial
general.
agriculture is enough. Just
Okay.
from industrial agriculture is enough to have it depleted.
Okay.
And the average is 10% left of what used to be in it. So I cannot eat 10 times the amount. I would just explode. So I come into biochemical scarcity. And then the body screams meat, because this is our biological rescue mechanism. If we don't get enough vegetables and fruits to eat, our system tells us try to catch an animal to survive. But the scarcity on biochemical level is not necessary, because if you eat food from ecologically run farms, if you eat healthy food, only healthy food, and then also avoid all the grass. We're not cows. We don't have this habit of burping up the food twice to get it fully digested. We do it in one run. So eating grass is not exactly a good idea.
Right.
Yeah?
Fruit is really.
Because fruit, vegetables, nuts, mushrooms, herbs, roots, seeds from whatever, pumpkin seed oil. These are the things that give you full nutrition. And when you eat all this in the way people actually, I love this paleo diet. Although it has the notification that meat is included, all the rest of it is brilliant, because if you do this, you do not need to eat any meat, because you're fully satisfied with what you get. And then the instinct I need is, okay, with the United States, it might be even different regarding fast food, where you have all kinds of addictive substances.
Yes, exactly. It does.
Really also
I've talked to food scientists over the course of my career, and they are actually hired to add addictive substances to certain foods in order to get people addicted to it. And then there are actually, I think eating in Europe is probably at least a little bit healthier than it is eating in America, because in America it's hard to find something that's, not GMO or not saturated in pesticides and herbicides, or processed in some capacity. And yet we have a high incidence of obesity. And
but we can again practice a bit when you kind of cited the guy that doesn't want to live without having meat. The sentence started again with yes, but I need my meat. Victim. Come out of victimhood. Nobody's forcing you to eat. You're not at mommy's table where you're fed whatever she serves. You are an adult person, and you can make your choice, and you're fully responsible for the choices you make. If you eat supermarket food and you get cancer age 55, you're fully responsible for your disease, because you poisoned yourself.
Exactly.
Self-responsibility.
Yes.
And there's no way to get out of this by grumbling and giving the victim. This is stupid. This is drama trying. We've been through it.
That is true. I'm going to remember that next time somebody says that. They won't like me, but that's okay. Sometimes you can just make people think.
Yeah, big topic with nutrition, also water quality. We do drink soft drinks, we do drink tea and coffee, because of the water quality we get is disastrous.
Do they fluoridate water over there in Europe? Is it fluoridated like they do here in the United States?
Different country to country. In Germany, not. Other countries do have it in the tap water. we get our share with toothpaste and application from the tooth doctor.
Well,
This is
most
the
Americans get it
mainstay.
in their water. Very few places don't have it in the water. It's mandated for it to be in the water. Of course, there are those of us who, filter it out of the water. It's not very easy to do. Sometimes there's a lot of deception in that regard too, because they offer these different devices as filtration, but it doesn't actually get the fluoride out. And that's a big problem too, but it's intentional.
Yes,
but
yes.
people need to educate themselves somewhat too in this day and age. It's a choice to be ignorant of it all.
Yes, in full self-responsibility, I don't want to know.
Yeah,
Leave me
there
in
you go.
peace. Life is comfortable.
Yes.
All
yes.
decisions are made by other people. Life is comfortable.
Yes.
Victim. Hidden
That's
profit.
true. That's true. Well, is there? That's so true. Is there anything else that you think we would be desirable to cover here? I don't know how long we've been. There were a few other things I remember that but I think it might be a lot to try to go into at this point too.
There's one more thing that is worth mentioning.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of half-truth out there about the Matrix.
Very much so.
Yeah. And I just came to that point from the practical view, realizing that there are two different collective consciousness systems. And I can run within the consciousness of our planet. I can run completely on the consciousness of this alien black goo. Or I can be somewhere in between and have shares of this and shares of that. Now, if I look into the consciousness system of the alien black goo, there is one core application that was given to humanity after the deterioration from the expulsion from paradise. And these are the snakes. This is what we know as the Kundalini snake and the Tumu snake. These are actually two demons coming from the biosphere of this degenerated planetary spirit that are implemented into our bioenergetic body with a very highly defined purpose. They have their own energetic spine that winds around our spine. And it creates a shortcut between the instinct area, so the basic chakra, and the head, the two chakras in the head. So the Kundalini snake has a tail, the down part of the spine, and the head in the neck, and the tentacles go onto all sensitive spots in the brain. And something that is not really known is that these snakes always come in couples. So there's a male snake involved. It's in the Asian tradition called the Tumu snake. And he has his tail somewhere here and his head between the legs. And they create something that is bypassing instinct to the brain without touching the heart. It was necessary because once you feel this trauma induced by the box of the Pandora, and the instinct is pain-loaded, you cannot live sexuality. This was the problem that humanity had. So they needed something to make sexuality function without experiencing this pain in the heart. And the snake was doing this bypass operation, taking the lust from the instinct area, bringing it straight up into the brain. So we shifted from a sexuality that was love controlled by the heart to a sexuality that was visually controlled by seeing a naked woman and getting horny. but without experiencing the pain. And this was a huge relief for humanity, but it had a Trojan horse element on board as well.
Another
Because
one.
these snakes get hold of your brain, and they have two core abilities. One is called cognitive dissonance,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is called magic. They can make us see whatever they want to make us see. This is the magic part. And they can make us not seeing things they don't want us to see. This is the cognitive dissonance part. And with these two abilities that are connected via the hive consciousness of the snakes to this planetary spirit, they can maneuver us into any direction they want to maneuver us. Unless our consciousness is heart-based, then you experience it as an attempt of manipulation. But as long as the consciousness is instinct-based and brain-based, you cannot tell that this is actually a magic trick or this is a manipulation of your system. Within the heart consciousness, it's no problem at all. You realize somebody is messing your system up, trying to introduce things that are not really there. You realize what's happening. But as long as your people are identified with the ego, this is the core matrix function. Cognitive dissonance and adding illusion is the core matrix function that is bringing us, as far as we follow the alien consciousness system, into a completely artificial world that is designed to trick us and push us around and maneuver us into exactly the positions they want to see us in. And this is also, I guess many spiritual people will listen to this show. The entire new age movement is meant to be the new satanic world religion. And again, people with a good will from inside are maneuvered by cognitive dissonance and illusions, maneuvered into believing that what they do is supportive and good.
Yes.
While they completely run the drama triangle with all this healing crap. There's only one healer, and this is your inner self, your true self, your higher self. You can heal yourself. Nobody else can heal you. This is impossible. One car cannot fix a second car. You need a mechanic to do so that is not a car, or the car needs to fix itself. And the mechanic is our higher self, and we fix our own car from this position of the higher self. This is the only healing that is real. All the rest is illusion and magic.
Wow.
And this is how the matrix is tricking humanity into positions where they are again fully dependent, fully unable to move somewhere else out of their own power, out of their own force.
I see that in the healthcare system all the time. Yeah.
And this is why these snakes are so valued in most of the spiritual traditions. These are black magic demons messing around with us. They need to go. We need to de-identify from them, keeping them out of any controlled position. And when they start tricking us with illusions and cognitive dissonance, we need to realize, this is my snake. When I met my girlfriend, that actually is responsible for huge parts of the path I went down to the point I'm today. The dark side exactly knew this is a dangerous combination. This is an extremely dangerous combination. These two people, with her spiritual experience and my knowledge, my science, they can get really close to the truth and cause a lot of damage to the black magic setup. So what happened when I first met her, I couldn't see her face. I could see the inner side of her skull, and there was no face and there was no brain, and I was looking into an empty shell. This is the ability of the snake to create delusional perceptions. And
Wow.
these snakes just decided to scare me off, to make me believe something is wrong with this girl. But I felt my heart at that point. And my heart explicitly told me, you're exactly on the right spot. You need to fight through this weird experience of not being able to see her. And you need to take a close look at who she is, because something important seems to happen at that point. And I just stared at her until I could grab the eyes and the nose and fought down this delusional experience.
Mm-hmm.
Other people would just get scared and say, okay, I'm not talking to a woman without a face. I'm leaving. So we need to be prepared that these two, once we stand up against the dark manipulation, we need to be prepared that there are things like cognitive dissonance. I experienced this whenever I had Morgellon-related research and went to state authorities or doctors and presented the full presentation of what this disease is. They all behaved as if I show a blank piece of paper with nothing on it.
Mm-hmm.
All of them, one after another. And I couldn't understand what was happening. Now I understand what was happening. They saw empty pieces of paper. This is why they behaved in that way. It was all just cognitive dissonance done by the snakes. I had beautiful working relationships with marvelous healers that could do everything. They could heal everything, and I could feel how it was healed in that moment. And one of the things that they did was pulling the snakes, for example. Bullshit. It was all illusion. Their snakes and my snakes created a gaming plane where I had the feeling that all the crap I discovered as being black magic already was removed from me, to make me believe that I'm clean and that my decisions are my decisions. And we needed like 3/4 of a year to finally discover that actually nothing of all the things they did with us had any effect on us. It was all illusion, orchestrated by the snakes. And to come to the point to be able to recognize all these dirty tricks, you need to be heart-centered, and then it works. Then your heart screams, something is wrong here. Yeah? Take a second look. Don't believe it. It looks good, but it's not. You know.
Uh-huh.
And just at the second attempt, now we managed to remove the snakes from my system. And this is something where you need actually very professional shamanic help to get them removed. And you should be 100% de-identified already, because if not, it can be lethal. They are very, very strongly integrated into the system.
Mm-hmm. Was this with ayahuasca by any chance, or does that have anything? Was that
sometimes ayahuasca managed?
Yeah, sometimes I can't say that right, but yeah, that actually is helpful, correct? That can be helpful.
To see them, to de-identify, yes, it can be helpful. Completely. What we need to see is that there are drugs that are helpful to experience reality in a way that our daily consciousness cannot experience reality. And then there are drugs like all the synthetic things you can buy on the street.
Yeah.
That are just there to shoot you away from being conscious at all. The law doesn't make a difference, but there is a huge difference. And I absolutely honor Kambo, frog poison. I honor ayahuasca, because this is a living spirit. Both are living spirits that show you what you need to learn about yourself. It has nothing to do with
I would like to experience that. I've wanted to for some time. But
it's about both are not poisoning the body, both are cleansing the body.
Cleansing.
Big difference
Wait,
to
both. Which
heroin.
what's the other one you
Right.
mentioned? Besides it?
Ayahuasca and Cambo,
And what?
the frog poison. Cambo.
Campbell.
Cambo is a Brazilian tree frog that has some kind of poison in the skin.
Oh,
And what
okay.
you basically do is you burn little holes into the skin and put one droplet of this frog poison onto it. It immediately goes into your system, and it basically is very similar to the cleansing by ayahuasca. You puke. Most of the
Uh-huh.
people puke,
Yeah.
get all kinds of poisons out of the system. And if you're lucky, the frog then takes you to a little trip to show you something you need to learn.
Huh. Wow. That's interesting. That's very
Yeah,
interesting. I want to do
I
that
had
one of these
one.
days. um,
I had two sessions in my life. The first one was just about cleansing the gallbladder and getting
uh-huh.
rid of demons. I still had 5 demons in my lower intestines from early
Is that where they
childhood. They had
reside?
to.
Is that where they
They can
reside? Or is
sit
that
on
just...
all. They can sit on all chakras.
Oh, okay.
It's like wherever a trauma can sit in the body, there's a slot for a demon to fit in.
Mm.
So I had traumata localized on the lower part of my body, and they had occupied the spots. And in the first session, the Cambo frog chucked them out. And the second session, I didn't puke at all. My body was already clean enough to keep everything in. It went to my brain, and then he took me to a trip to the rainforest with all the animals associated to the rainforest sitting around me in the forest, loving
Uh-huh.
me. And I kind of got nervous, like, what are you doing? You know, why are you sitting around me and just love me? I mean, where's the point? And then the frog said, actually, you know, we're going to sit here and love you until you love yourself.
Until you love them?
No, until I love myself.
Oh, until you love
That's it.
yourself. Oh, yes. Okay. Very
So
important.
they showed me what it means to be in self-love, which is a huge portion of self-responsibility. Because when you don't have self-love, you don't have an energy supply. And if you don't have an energy supply, you're dependent on the gaming level to suck energy from others. You cannot leave without getting into self-love. Because if you just leave like this and
Mm-hmm.
stop sucking energy from other people and don't have a source of your own, you just starve energetically. It's impossible. You will always fall back into the old habits of sucking from other people.
Wow.
So it is important to also develop the self-love. And especially in the United States, the most difficult thing on the path of coming to self-love is that America is sitting on a huge portion of self-disgust. That mainly comes from the family systems, from the times when the Europeans slaughtered the Red Indians. You can, with a mindset, with an ego mindset, you can slaughter people without feeling pain, without feeling damage. But the entire being, the unconscious part of or the subconscious part of the being, is feeling these scars and needs to handle these deeds. And from this time, you have a huge load of self-disgust for doing these things. To nature in the United States, doing these things to the Red Indians. And I had spiritual sessions where we invited American souls on the astral plane to join into ceremonies. Back then, it was connected to the Gulf, to the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And we asked for assistance to heal the nature in the Gulf. And they didn't know what it means to heal the nature by loving it. And we couldn't find the problem. We had hundreds of souls attending this ritual from the United States. But they couldn't see the point, how can I love this?
Myself.
They couldn't find the slot to just do so. So we just redefine the session into, let's try to find out what is blocking you here. And I try, when I do these things, I just empathically follow the stream of the strongest emotion. And I ended up in their self-disgust. And it was an incredible, painful experience to be in this state. Still, when I just remember it, it makes me cry, because how can you feel towards yourself in this way? It's not a state of being, it's just wow. And
Wow.
back in that session, we just came to the point of telling them, you know, you need to forgive yourself. First step is forgiving yourself the things that happened. And when this part is cleared, then self-love can return. And when self-love is back, you will be able to love others, and you will be able to love and cure and heal nature again. Because nature is dependent on our abilities to administer this biosphere. This is our position in the biosphere. We are supposed to be the gardeners taking care of everything. But all we do is running the chainsaw at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is our responsibility. And the beautiful thing about responsibility, if you take this word apart, it's the ability to respond.
The ability to expose?
To respond.
Oh, respond.
We have the ability to respond. On the situation we created.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's all in our hands, and we just need to take this decision to respond with our abilities, to cure ourselves from all these Trojan horses we swallowed in the past, to forgive ourselves that we were stupid enough and lazy enough. Most of it is laziness to feel. We could have made it in the first go when this pain came from the box of the Pandora. We could have said, this is painful, but we take this pain. For the sake of our planet, we go through this pain and dissolve it. This would have been our ability and our responsibility at that point. But we said, no, this is painful. I don't like to feel pain. We rejected part of our nature and created the first bit of unconsciousness within us, which was the hook to build on it and on it and on it and on it. So our problem is the laziness to feel, and we need to go back to that point where we go through all these emotional processes to heal ourselves, to cure ourselves, to again come back in the position to be empathic on all levels. Empathy only works as deep as I can feel myself. If I don't feel pain, if I don't feel my own pain, I will never be able to feel the pain I cause in others. If I don't feel my own anger, I will never be able to empathically sense anger. So if we want to administer our biosphere, we need to be fully empathic. So we need to completely dig down into ourselves to be first able to feel ourselves. And all the dramas, all the traumas, all the experiences that are not digested till now, not understood, not fully felt. Fully felt is maybe the best expression. We need to go through this to become fully aware, fully conscious, and fully empathic again. And then we can do our job. And then we can relate to nature. And then the rest is actually easy going.
So it's heal yourself, basically, by knowing yourself and going through the pain.
Yes.
Before you can actually really do anything to help anyone else. Or
yes. So, sometimes family business is involved. Sometimes it's not only. So you have like two lines. One is the bloodline, where you have the epigenetics of the deeds of your parents and grandparents, and
Uh-huh.
you have your incarnation line, which is basically your the emotional memory of your immortal self that also plays in. So you have two lines to clear,
Oh, okay.
and different techniques for with yourself, with your higher self, the incarnated part. You can be responsible for yourself. You can do most of the things alone. For your family system, things are more complicated. Sometimes aspects are taken over by other members of the family. Sometimes you took over aspects of other members of your family. So things can be complicated and mixed up.
Mm.
So this sometimes needs a bit of professional help of people who can see these structures.
Uh-huh. Shamans, basically.
Basically, it's
Yeah.
the only completely healthy and clean tradition we have on this planet. It's the old shamanic, and it doesn't matter which continent the shamanism comes from. It's all the same because it is knowledge about the human being and how the human being functions.
Mm-hmm.
There is no difference in the traditions.
Yeah. And I
Everybody
imagine.
uses local herbs, but the knowledge is the same.
Uh-huh. Wow. Well, is there anything else? That's awesome. This has been a great session. If there's anything you'd like to add, please feel free.
Yeah, maybe just the last brick on this is what we know as transhumanism. But I don't feel like going into it because to this point, it's a lot to digest.
Yes, it
And
is. Yes.
it's a lot of options to start working on. We now go into the transhumanism topic. We very likely would again drop in the victim position because this is done with us. We cannot shoot down the plane spraying all this chemicals on us. So there's the danger to drop into the victim feeling when we look at
Mm-hmm.
all this. The important thing is the food part. The important thing is the health part. So we take care of ourselves. Transhumanism cannot take us over. All the bad habits of eating the wrong things are specially designed to enable the transhumanistic technologies to jump into the biochemical havoc this bad nutrition creates, to take over our biochemistry and to create the biorobot within us. If you take care of your health, the entire topic of transhumanism is not worth being discussed because it will never touch you.
It will.
So
Yes. Yes, that's so
first,
true.
it's another 2 hours to go into all these concepts, but the solution is already delivered, and this is getting into self-responsibility food-wise. And then your body detoxifies and cleans itself, and then the other
It's a
things
critical
will.
part because you can't think straight. Your body's not functioning the way it normally would if it was clean. And the food in this country is exceptionally bad. I mean, you really have to. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. I mean, you really have to take measures to gain knowledge about it so that you can eat as cleanly and healthily as possible. And some of the things that I call myself an alternative nutritionist because many of the things that they sold people on, which were part of something like they once called the food pyramid, and it was full of grains, and the grains are saturated with the glyphosate. And then you have, the cattle industry and the dairy industry influencing that, and then you have the medical profession um, influencing it even further. There's a lot that people need to educate themselves on, utilizing that self-responsibility in order to get to the level that we would hope more people would get to, so that the collective becomes cleaner.
There's one more thing that massively comes into the game. This is microwave radiation. You can fully eat healthy follow all the diets recommended, being fully responsible for your food. But if you expose yourself to microwave radiation, it doesn't help.
Microwave
Um,
radiation? Are you
I
talking
just want
about
to smart meters,
oh, that kind of thing? Yeah.
mobile phones, um, and all the state-run antenna systems to really mess people up. But as far as you can avoid these things, use the cable or just destroy your smart meter until they mount an old-fashioned device with cable again. Because this is a killer. I just want to explain what it does. There is one biochemical molecule in the human body. It's choline. Choline is a very small molecule that has the function of a locomotive. It has a hydrogen bond on one end of the molecule, and with this hydrogen bond, it grabs toxins to move them out of the body, and it grabs nutrients to bring them to the place where they're needed in the body. And this weak hydrogen bond, it's like a clutch. The locomotive takes the train. And this bond is disabled by microwave radiations. After 3 minutes, it goes like open, close in the rhythm of the vibration. And it cannot hold anything anymore. So it cannot transport nutrition. And it cannot transport toxins out of the body. So it doesn't matter what you eat or what you don't eat. You cannot take up nutrients and you cannot detox in. It also plays a major role in the nervous system. So this numb feeling you get when you have a mobile phone call for longer than 3 minutes, and this numb feeling in your brain. This is the disablement of the choline in its function of being a neurotransmitter.
Choline, when you say choline, are you talking about CHOLINE, choline? Is that what you're... I guess I'm not...
CHOLIN, yes.
Okay.
E, I think.
I just wanted to make sure I had the right... Yeah, okay.
And stupid things like keeping your wireless LAN router online 24/7. I know people who really live on a healthy diet and they now die of cancer or are on the way of dying from cancer.
What about orgonite?
Because they doesn't help.
Doesn't help? No?
It does something. Orgonite absorbs certain types of radiation, but it also is saturated after 6 months, and then it starts to radiate instead of absorbing radiations.
Oh, no.
So if you use them, replace them after like 3 months, get new ones, and then there's the problem where to dump them, because even if you throw them away, they won't stop radiating. So you at the end, you radiate other people. So it's not a good concept unless the orgonite has something implemented that is continuously cleansing the energy. Then it does work in a way. But the best solution is not taking in poison and not taking in radiation. So if you can switch off the devices and go back to cable, go back to cable. If you have the smart meter somewhere outside your house, I know in the United States, you mount them outside on the street. This comes from a friend of mine, a German doctor living and working in the United States. Use of the German method, take a hammer and destroy your smart meter, and then phone the company. Tell them somebody destroyed my smart meter, I need a new one. And if you repeat this 3 times, they will come up with a conventional device that has no radiation. And if you do this, if you go to your neighbors, if you're living in a city, you have like 7 wireless LAN grids inside your flat. Yeah, at least go to your neighbors, tell them, I am electrosensitive, I heavily suffer from your microwave radiation that you produce with your wireless LAN. Could you please add this time switch to your device? You save energy, because you don't need it at night. Just put it on on off from 2 in the morning till 9 in the morning or whenever you need it again, so that at least my body can recover during sleep. Because this is killing me. The radiation your devices are emitting are killing me.
So your computers, your Androids, your tablets, any of that type of thing should be shut off at night. To
Yes.
the Wi-Fi from them
Yes,
as well.
yes.
The
They
smart
shouldn't
meters
be
being the worst.
existing at first speed. Smart meters, yes, yes. This is a problem because there's a legal system behind it. So it needs some courage to fight this off. But most of the people I know do not even bother to switch off their own wireless overnight. And some people I know have it under their bed because they didn't find a proper place to put the station. They just dumped it under the bed. And they're sleeping like 20 centimeters from the antenna. So people are careless, and doing this is kind of the same thing as stopping eating. It has the same consequences for your body. You innerly toxify and starve at the same time if you are really 24/7 exposed to high levels of radiation. And I'm not yet talking about autistic children that can be born, or children that are not born at all in the second generation because the mitochondrial DNA is completely destroyed by these microwave radiations. There's a lot of havoc still to come from this. And it's so easy to take care of yourself on that plane. Buy a stupid cable and fix your laptop to the router with a cable and switch the wireless off.
And don't use
it doesn't kill you not being able to run around with the device. Go to your table and work on the table. No problem. And this is self-responsibility. And, if you don't do it and in 15 years you get breast cancer or whatever type of cancer, don't blame anyone except yourself. You did this to yourself. You knew and you didn't care. You knew and you didn't put attention. You knew and you forgot, or you let the cognitive dissonance forget for you.
Yeah. Good point. And the thing of it is people you don't immediately feel it. So, then they think that
when you start feeling it, it's close to too late. when you start feeling electromagnetic waves, you start feeling them when actually your entire system is so mercury loaded that you have a cluster of heavy metal antennas penetrating your entire body, carrying the fields into the system. Normally, if you're not toxified, electromagnetic waves go around you. They do not even penetrate the skin. The moment you have heavy metal intoxication, then the field structure jumps from mercury to mercury to mercury and penetrates to a depth of 20, 30 centimeters, which is completely penetrating the human body, unless you're this size.
Wow.
So this is kind of when it's too late, when you're completely poisoned, then you start feeling dizzy from the radiation. Then it becomes painful in your inner organs. But then it's too late, then you're completely poisoned. And then it takes like at least half a year of very intelligent measures to get this again out of your body, because the entire detoxing mechanism you have on board is also disabled. And then it's an art in itself to actually find the correct point to unravel all this, to bring it back to normal. You cannot start at any point. You need to start at the point with the biggest problem to solve this first, and then that, and then that. It needs a good doctor and a lot of patience to go through a healing when it is already at that state. And there are not many good doctors around that even can do this.
Yeah.
The only one in the States I know that really is able to make a correct diagnosis is Dietrich Klinghardt. Or the other one have like lists with symptoms and pharmaceuticals, and they just go into the list
Makes it
And
worse.
find the right pharmaceutical to suppress the symptom. And this is killing, not curing.
It's very common over here, very common.
Yeah.
And people rely on the doctors, and the doctors aren't, they're not doing what they should do. But
Yeah, a good one, a beautiful one. What is the symbol of the pharmaceutical industry?
the snake. I know, I
Yeah,
was
and it
thinking of
all
that.
ties together.
Yes, I was seeing that when you
And
were talking about that earlier.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't expect solutions from them because they are part of the evil grid.
exactly. But unfortunately, so many people do. I don't even go to a doctor. I refuse to go. Um, but anyway, I guess if I was in a car accident or something like that, I wouldn't have much choice. But otherwise, no.
Yeah,
And I've been working on detoxification for a long time, so I like to think I'm almost there. And I'm vegetarian, fruitarian actually, is the I it helps a lot, makes a big difference. But well,
yeah,
I can't thank you enough. This has been a wonderful interview, and
my pleasure.
maybe we can do it again sometime after a while. But we covered a lot of very timely and very important topics, and thank you, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go to
Okay.
bed now. So
No,
it
I'm
must be
going to
pretty
eat
late, huh?
something. Then I will go to check my emails. Second
Oh,
round
okay.
for today.
You're a night owl. Well,
Yes, yes.
that's good. Well, that's good. Okay. Thank you again,
Okay.
Harold. It was a
Have a good
pleasure.
evening.
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye. Let's see. I got to figure out how to turn this off. Okay.